Homeless veteran helped a little girl. What happened next is heartwarming ***. The rain hammered the pavement like distant gunfire, and for a moment, Marcus Whitfield flinched the way he always did when the sky turned violent. He pressed his back against the cold brick wall of the abandoned laundromat, pulling his tattered army jacket tighter around his shoulders, when he heard it, a small, panicked voice cutting through the storm. "Please, somebody help her." Marcus opened his eyes. Through the sheets of rain, he saw a little girl, no older than 7, kneeling beside a woman collapsed on the sidewalk. The woman wasn't moving. Cars rushed past, splashing water, no one stopping, no one even slowing down. The girl's small hands were shaking as she tried to lift her mother's head, screaming into the storm for someone, anyone, to notice. Marcus didn't think. 3 years on the streets had taught him to disappear, to make himself invisible so the world wouldn't hurt him further. But something in that child's cry reached past the numbness, past the years of sleeping in doorways and being stepped over like garbage. He pushed himself up and ran. If this story moves something in you already, hit that like button, drop a comment about where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Hope and Wisdom if you believe that kindness deserves a second chance, because what happens next will remind you why we keep believing in people. Marcus dropped to his knees beside the woman, pressing 2 fingers to her neck the way he'd been trained to do a lifetime ago, in a different world, before the war took pieces of him he never got back. A pulse, faint, but there. "She's diabetic," the little girl sobbed, pointing to a bracelet on her mother's wrist. "She needs sugar, she needs her medicine, it's in her purse, I don't know what to do." Marcus's hands moved fast despite the cold seizing his joints. He found the glucose tablets in the purse, tilted the woman's head gently, and helped her swallow them one at a time while shielding her from the rain with his own body. The little girl, whose name he would soon learn was Sophie Reyes, knelt beside him, gripping his sleeve like it was the only solid thing left in her world. "Talk to her," Marcus said softly. "Keep saying her name. She needs to hear you." Minutes stretched like hours. Sophie's voice cracked as she called out, "Mommy, Mommy, please," over and over, and Marcus found himself praying for the first time since Kandahar, since the last time he'd held a dying man's hand and felt utterly powerless. Then, slowly, the woman's eyes fluttered open. Confusion, then recognition, then tears mixing with rain as she saw her daughter's face above her. An ambulance arrived 12 minutes later, though it felt like a lifetime to everyone soaked on that sidewalk. As paramedics loaded Sophie's mother onto a stretcher, she reached out weakly and grabbed Marcus's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved my life." Marcus, unused to gratitude, unused to being seen at all, simply nodded and stepped back into the shadows of the storm, ready to disappear again like he always did. But Sophie wouldn't let him. She ran after him, her small sneakers slapping against wet concrete. "Wait. What's your name? You can't just leave." Marcus turned, startled by the fierceness in her voice. "Marcus," he said quietly. "Marcus Whitfield." Sophie nodded solemnly, as if committing it to memory forever, and then she did something that broke him completely. She wrapped her small arms around his waist and hugged him, rain and all, unafraid of his ragged clothes or the smell of the streets that clung to him. "Thank you for saving my mommy," she whispered. That night, Marcus slept in his usual spot under the overpass, but something had shifted inside him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. He didn't know that 3 days later, a car would pull up beside him, Sophie's mother, whose name was Elena, stepping out with Sophie bouncing excitedly beside her. Elena had spent those 3 days searching, asking shop owners, checking shelters, refusing to let the man who saved her life vanish into anonymity. She sat beside Marcus on the curb that day, no judgment in her eyes, only gratitude and something that looked like recognition, like she saw not a homeless man but a soldier, a protector, a human being who had simply run out of luck. She learned about his 3 tours overseas, about the friends he'd lost, about the paperwork and bureaucracy that had failed him when he came home broken and forgotten. And instead of walking away, Elena did something extraordinary. She connected Marcus with a veterans outreach program she volunteered for, cutting through red tape herself, sitting with him through appointments, refusing to let the system swallow him the way it almost had. Within 2 months, Marcus had a small apartment. Within 4, he had a part-time job at the very outreach center that helped him, counseling other veterans who felt as lost as he once had. And every single week, without fail, Sophie insisted on visiting her hero, bringing him drawings of the two of them standing together in the rain, always smiling, always saved. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment, even just one word, letting us know you're still out there believing in kindness. It genuinely means the world to see it. Before we close this chapter, if you've made it this far, comment the word hope below. I want to see how many hearts this story reached tonight. Marcus Whitfield never expected that one act of instinct in a rainstorm would rebuild his entire life. He often says it wasn't him who saved Sophie's mother that day, it was Sophie who saved him, simply by refusing to let a broken man disappear. Sometimes the smallest hands hold the power to heal the deepest wounds, and sometimes, the person the world walked past is exactly the hero someone desperately needed.